the environment to be, seamless, peaceful, cool. The ideas got to start flowing. If somebody's arrogant or somebody acting a fool, I'll leave. You the one need to hit. So I suggest that you make your work environment and the people that's trying to get you to that point, somebody who's creative, keep it chill, keep it peaceful, keep it cool. You know what I mean? If it's cool, then that's when the ideas start flowing.
What's up? I'm Brand-Man Sean.
And I'm Corey.
And we are back with another episode of No Labels Necessary podcast, where we have amazing conversations about creativity, currency, and of course, independence, if that suits you. But today we have a very special guest, music legend, producer, writer, executive, Bryan-Michael Cox.
What's up?
Hey man, glad to have you here, man. There's a lot that we can talk about. Your career has been storied, but we got to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Mariah's Emancipation of Mimi,
Yep.
Chris Brown's self-titled Chris Brown, his debut album. We're right at 20th anniversary, so I want to start there, give a little bit of people context, and then we can jump around. There's a lot of questions I got for you. Now, Emancipation of Mimi.
Yeah.
We were talking about this because we're young, so we remember that time. For us, it almost felt like the beginning of her career.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's really interesting perspective.
Yeah, and the reason being, obviously, because the years prior, she kind of had a down period.
Yeah.
Like, it was a lot of down period, breakdowns and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like, I would love to know, being a part of something that was such a massive comeback for somebody who was up here, went down for real, but became what that project did. How did it feel? Like, was that something going through your head, or was it just like a regular job, or was there like extra pressure?
I think for us it was it was just work. We had worked Mariah. Jermaine obviously worked with her. Early on, he always been my baby. All those songs did in the '90s, from up until I met him and met her, and we worked on the Rainbow album, which was '99. I think there's a step. It was like there was an album before.
Yes.
Emancipation called Charm Bracelet. Yeah. Charm Bracelet, to me, that was the album that kind of was like the soft launch. Like I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, it was like a comeback, or it felt like it was like a Emancipation just came out of nowhere. But I feel like Charm Bracelet was like the lob, like you know what I'm saying, the alley hoop, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Charm Bracelet was a platinum sale. Now it had 2 top 10 records on it. Like I think that she was positioning herself for what would end up becoming the explosion that ended up being Emancipation.
Got it. Now, can you share what was the part that you play in Emancipation of Mimi?
Well, yeah, me and Jermaine Dupri are collaborators, collaborators. So, we worked on the music together, and then all of us together wrote lyrics. So we, me, Jermaine, Jonte, Mariah, of course, Mariah leading the way. Come up with concepts, write lyrics. So like just the creative process, man. It's like it's always collaborative, and just somebody sit at the piano or somebody sit at the keyboard, and Jermaine jumps on the drum machine while I'm at the keyboard, and Mariah starts singing melodies, and we start. It's just like I wish it could be like, oh yeah, this person does that. This person, we literally is collaborative. You know what I mean?
See, I'm gonna go off base for a bit, because the collaboration aspect of it, I feel like. Do you feel like collaboration happens to the same degree as it used to?
Yeah, I don't think it happened. I don't think it's happening at the same quality that it used to. But I think that it's because now like somebody may drop may change a pattern on a hi-hat and they get production credit. So it's it wasn't that easy back then to get production credit. You know what I mean? So I think the whole industry is about, when it comes to creatives, all they know what to do is to collaborate. I just don't think the quality of collaboration is as high as it used to be.
See, because I have a little bit of a theory. I haven't thought about it in a minute, but a lot of the music we have these days, so you have the more industry, right, where you truly are working with people in studios, and then you have the aspect of like, I might just send a song over and never talk, never be in the same room. And then you got the outside, new kids coming up. I'm creating music in my room.
In my bedroom, yeah.
So there's no one around to give me feedback on if this is good, if this is better, or just tweaking your idea.
So let me interject, right?
Okay.
You are absolutely correct when it comes to things like that. And when I use the word collaborate in for the new way, I guess the kids are doing it. A lot of times you're right. They don't be in this, like they're not in the same room. It's like they're sending files there, you know what I mean? Which makes collaboration easier, right? Like if I'm just sending you files, I know I'm gonna get a song back, and it's like it makes it easier. But I think that's why the quality is not the same. You know what I'm saying? Because when we collaborate with artists, we're in the room. Like I'm not sending Mariah MP3. Like you know what I'm saying? Like we know what I mean? Like especially not for the inception of the song. You know what I mean? Maybe we get a song on its feet. Maybe we don't finish it in that moment. Maybe she takes it with her, and she'll call like, Brian, can you send me the files, and she'll finish it. Like I'm working on a project right now. This group called The Shies, Carl Thomas, Dave Hollister, and Selena Johnson. And Dave, was having a personal issue. He couldn't make it to a lot of the sessions we had in Atlanta. Right. So I started with me and Johnson started with Carl and Selena, got some of the songs on their feet, and then Dave is now adding his vocals. You know what I mean? I'm not in the building, but we on the phone. He's sending me files. So you know what I mean? So I think that's why I'm we're a little old school, so that's why it's imperative that Dave calls me like, yo man, I'm doing this vocal, put your ears on it, let me know what you think, and then I could give him direction, and but we come from a different era. Now I think what's happened with a collaborative thing is that because of what you described. People don't have to be in the same room. They just, you in the bedroom, you may send a file to somebody. You may upload a track on YouTube, and somebody may, I may not even know you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I hear a track that I like, or what they do, they lease tracks now. You may lease tracks. I may not even know the person that created the music. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Or, I may not know the person who created the song, but I'm going to lease the track. Whatever, and whatever provisions are on the site, and however y'all get paid, it works out that way. But I think that's why the art of collaboration has been diluted, because if I don't even know you, I'm just I have no idea what that initial idea was supposed to be. I'm just taking your idea and making it my own. And
because it seems like it's something too, right? Being in the room with certain people also in terms of just like making you sharper. Right? Yes. Like, oh dang, that bag that he has, I don't even know where that bag came from. You learn stuff from just being around other people, and I wonder if that, I don't like to be. I feel like I'm too young to get accused of, hey, you being an old head. But at the same time, people think a lot of times you're just dismissing new music when there was an environment. That's what it's more about. It's less about the artists themselves. It's more just about the environment better nurtures a different quality of music, I think, or develops the artist.
In general, I think that I think when you collaborate in any capacity, you know what I'm saying, it's better to be in the room, like where you discuss some marketing ideas. I like to, even if it's a Zoom, you know what I mean, I like to bounce. Let's have a little banter, because that's how you get to the good stuff.
So let's do an exercise, and like to add an example. So what was your, because we mentioned Emancipation of Mimi, what was your favorite song that from that project?
Ultimately, I would say "Don't Forget About Us" is probably my favorite song.
Okay, so how did y'all come to that track? Like, what was the collaboration that created that?
I mean, it's a long time ago. My memory's a little foggy, but if I'm correct, we got a call. Mariah called. She called me first, and because me and Jermaine hadn't been working together, we went through a spell where I was doing my own thing, and he was doing his own thing, and that's how I missed We Belong Together. They did We Belong Together without me, so I got a call after We Belong Together was a hit. Shake It Off was a hit, and I was working on something. I can't remember what project, but I got a call, and Mariah was like, "Yo, you can come to Atlanta. Where are you?" So I'm in LA. You can come to Atlanta and work with me and Jermaine on a new song. I want to do it. I want to add a song to. I'm doing a deluxe. I'm adding some songs on this album. So I bet, let's figure it out. So then Diane called me, who's Jermaine's production coordinator, called me, gave me the rundown. So we go to Atlanta. I come back home, and if I'm correct, how it always starts as a conversation. Mariah always references records, so she'll always talk about like, oh, I like this song from so and so. Or she may bring like a stack of records, like a stack of songs, like, oh yeah, these are songs, let's get in this bag or whatever. So she had played this song, Melissa Morgan's version of "Do Me Baby." So Prince has a song called "Do Me Baby." Mm-hmm. Melissa Morgan famously remade the song in the mid '80s, and it was like a big hit for her. And she was like, I want a song in this key. I want a song I want something sultry. I want a song in this key. So okay, cool. So then you start playing around, and I started coming up with what the chords would be. When I'm coming up with chords, so we're all in the room together, and we have a mic. She has a mic, just like that. The tape is running, or Pro Tools is running, while we're trying to come up with stuff, and she's passed the mic around. Like she come up, sing melodies down, whatever, and then she'll pass the mic to Jonte, and Jonte comes with whatever, and then she'll pass the mic to JD, and then she'll pass the mic to me, and then we just kind of pass the mic around until something starts to formulate, and it's like, okay, I like this part, that part, this part. And okay, well, cool. Now what are we going to write about? And then Mariah has a book of, she's always writing concepts. She has like, the butterfly notebook. You know what I'm saying? And she goes into a notebook, and then concepts come out of that. And so don't forget about us started in that space. And then once we get a concept, now we have a melody, we have a concept. Now it's like, what words are we fitting inside this melody? And then we throwing out lines, that line sticks, throw that line, let's say this, they say it this way. And then next thing you know, it's a song.
It sounds like that process is like egoless,
What you mean?
Well, because a lot of artists, when you hear them
egoless.
Okay, egoless. Yeah. Like, because when a lot of artists is like, oh, this is my song or this is my part, and they don't want people to touch, but it seems like that's almost like fun. Obviously, you have to respect. You got to respect everybody in the room and have a little bit of chemistry. But it sounds like y'all are just like trying to find it, whatever it is.
And what I found in my journey is that the bigger the artist I've worked with, the more humble they are. It's really interesting.
Really,
you would think that you go in the studio with Mariah. She's like your first. She's going to be diva'd out. My first time working with Mariah was in 1998. She was the biggest star in the world, and I had never worked with nobody that big, you know what I mean? And, I don't know what to expect, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then she walks in the room, and she's the most humble, most cool, chill, like cracking jokes and, just fun, you know what I mean? So my experience, I'm talking about all across the board, a lot of the artists that were not humble or were a little big on themselves, or artists that either had one record, or artists that just got signed, so they're feeling themselves. You know what I mean? But for me, like an Usher, Mariah, Mary, Monica, like all those artists, they were already big artists, and they were just these people became my friends instantly, and they were cool. It was not like they made it uncomfortable. They weren't, They weren't overly demanding. It's just crazy. Like you think about, go get my song. You think, you know what I mean? Like you have this thing in your mind when you're dealing with people who are superstars. You think, obviously they have teams of people, around them that's making sure that they're good. But it's not like they're like, you need to do that. It didn't come off that way.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think when you've been in the business long enough, you understand the value of humility. You understand the value of, your personal space being as stress-free as possible. And a lot of times, that chip on your shoulder, that arrogant flavor, that could breed stress.
Man, I didn't expect you to say that. Yeah, to me.
You feel like the arrogant attitude breeds stress?
It can.
Like creates problems for the artist or breeds stress for them in what way?
Yeah, creates problems for the artist, creates problems for the environment when you're trying to be creative. You know what I'm saying? Like you want the environment to be, seamless, peaceful, cool. The ideas got to start flowing. If somebody is like if the vibe is off, if somebody's arrogant or somebody acting a fool, I'll leave.
Yeah, no, that's
like I get up out of there. Like, nah, I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care how great you think you are, bro. Like we're in this room together, and you need it. You need a hit.
Yeah, no,
You know what I'm saying? Like you know, you need it. You know, I'm gonna go write another song for somebody else. You know, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You the one need to hit. So you know, I suggest that you make your work environment and the people that's trying to get you, that's to that point. Somebody who's creative, you know, keep it chill, keep it peaceful, keep it cool. You know what I mean? If it's cool, then that's when the ideas start flowing. But if like, you know, I've been in the studio with some really, really incredible people. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think that is important to have a sense of course, you have a sense of order, a sense of hierarchy. You know, there's respect. You know, I'm always gonna respect the artist, or I always respect, you know, who's in the room. You know, I'm never gonna be disrespectful, but it's like, you know, we all have to make sure that the environment is conducive to what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I only ask because we had a producer on last year. I can't think of bro's name, so my bad if you see this man. But he pretty much said the same thing you said, and they were cooking him in our comments. There was a lot of artists, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, they were talking about how like, no, the producer is supposed to match the vibe of the artist, or it's the producer's job to kind of come in here and more so amalgamate to the vision of the artist. So you feel like the bigger picture is creating that working vibe together based on the situation.
It's a collective. I don't care what. I mean, yeah, you an artist but there are a lot of artists that don't need producers, right? And they, you know, those artists don't work with producers, so they can't be. They can be what they want to be. You know what I'm saying? Because they doing it themselves. So if a co-producer walks in the room with an artist who is a producer, who is a songwriter, and there's some tension, that is noted. Like, okay, well, no, this guy actually is, or this person actually is a full blown creative force. They write, produce, so when you navigate that kind of situation, because I've been in a situation like that where artists who does it all, and the record label was like, oh, we want to put you with B Cox and that. And so I've been in that space where it's like, okay, as a producer now, I'm producing a producer, or you know, or I'm helping another producer they're artists, but they're a producer. Now when I walk into this session, I gotta walk in and navigate their space. So if they're on some arrogant, you know, stuff at that point, right? Then I can say to myself, this is their space. This is how they, you know what I mean? Okay, so how do I navigate? How do I make them feel comfortable in this space? We all should be feeling comfortable. We all should be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. As an artist, you should want the producer to be comfortable. You should want the songwriter to be comfortable so you can get your best work, you know? Because you're going to be going through a lot of writers, a lot of producers. If you know what I mean? People don't have to be there, man.
Yeah, it makes me think of this quote I saw from you. You said something to the lines of, all of your biggest songs came from conversations that you had with the artist. So
all of them.
Do you feel like that initial conversation is important to making that type of song?
Absolutely. I think that if I get a call to work with an artist, I actually would like to, you know, I would prefer to, like, you know, they say let's do 3 days, I would prefer to do 4 days, because I would prefer to have 1 day of just us talking, chopping it up, you know, kicking it. You know, because I think a lot of, like I said, for me, in every situation, for me, songs come from conversation. You know what I mean?
Gotcha,
And because these are your songs, like you know what I mean? If we're crafting songs for you, you got to sing these songs, you know, for the rest of your life.
That's how you make it authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You going on tour, you got to love these songs, because you're going to get tired of them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You're going to sing them over and over and over again. Yeah. And don't, you know, you blow up and you have to do, you know, 2 world tours and, dude, you know what I mean? You're performing at the Grammys. It's just, you're going to have to sing these songs over and over and over again for the rest of your career. You know what I'm saying? You know, Beyonce has to sing Crazy in Love for the rest of her career. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, even Mary had to bring Be Without You back. She had stopped singing it for a while, and then she had to bring it back. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have you start making smash records Like Usher has to sing "You Got It Bad." He has to sing like. So
Yeah.
I always want songs to be an extension of the artist, especially if it's something that they can directly relate to. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, if we had a conversation about it and we wrote about it, you really that came from you.
Yeah. You just translate.
You just it came, so that that came from you. So now when you sing the song, when Usher gets on stage and he does "Nice and Slow," Jermaine Emmanuel, that was through a conversation they had. When he gets on stage and he does "Burn" and "Confessions," these are all conversations me and Jermaine and Usher had. It's an extension of him. So,
It makes me think about a quote. Because you had said something like Jermaine Dupri is a method writer.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Um,
And then also, how would you define your process in terms of a writer? Is it the same or different?
well, a method writer to me, when I say it, is the person who's going to talk to you and get the story right. We're going to have conversations. I'm the same way. We're going to have conversations. In those conversations, something will click. So, for example, the new Ironic song, "Soft Girl Era," we were working on a record with her called "Vacancy." And then the next day, we came in, was going to start this other song, and me and Jermaine were working on the track, and they were passing the mic. I like the pass the mic concept because you never know what kind of melody comes from those situations. Mm-hmm. So we passed the mic around, and Ari asks JD like, "Yo, what's the saying? Like, what's the conversation out here? Like, what do girls, what are the women that you come across? What are they talking about? This and that. Third. What's on TikTok? We just talking. It was like, the theme has been soft girl era. That's the theme. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. And then you start writing a song. So it's like all of it to me is about that conversation. It's very rare that we just go into the studio and, something that we talked about is going to get written down. Whether we talked about it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Whether we talked about it a week ago, whether we talked about it yesterday, you know what I mean? To me, it's an endless stream of conversation. This is how we get to our songs.
Got you. Yeah, it seems like that prevents any writer's block, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we've had writer's block in some cases, but you're right, it does. It's a really good exercise to keep the conversation going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a really good exercise.
What do you think is the difference? Because you said a couple of things when it comes to a bigger artist being more humble than a lot of smaller artists, or at least that artist who first got that hit, right? Mm-hmm. But then what are some other things that you've noticed to be a little different in terms of the levels, right? So like Mariah, you said she comes with all these tracks and everything. She seems really prepared.
Yeah.
Have there been things where you've just gotten to a studio and work with a bigger and bigger artist, and you're like, whoa, okay, this is a different level, the level of preparation. Yeah. What are the nuances?
And usually when it goes, that's another thing too. A lot of those artists are overly prepared. Like going to studio with Usher. Usher is like vocal coach and lemon water, honey. Like he's doing 200 push-ups. He's, you know what I mean? It's and when he goes in the booth, he's ready. He's like, all right, I got the song today. I learned the song. I don't want to read off the paper, so I memorize the song. Like the preparation is more of a gift than his talent is ridiculous, but his preparation matches the talent, right?
Yeah.
But then you have somebody like a 12-year-old Bow Wow, right? Who I was like very, very impressed with how he got down as a kid. Like, I don't think people understand the magnitude of like how gifted Bow Wow really is, right? I think that people get kind of caught up in, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But I don't think people really understand how gifted that kid is. You know what I'm saying? Well, he's not a kid anymore, but when he was a kid, you know what I'm saying? And how he's a gifted person now, but I think people take it for granted because we've seen him for so long.
Yeah.
But Bow Wow's 12 years old. We do the song, or 11 or 12. We do the song, and Jermaine will put down the demo, right? And maybe me and Jermaine finished that first album in like 12 to 14 days, like finished. You know what I'm saying? Like the Bow Wow album happened super fast. The first album happened really, really fast. So Jermaine would, we would make tracks, and Jermaine would, we would write songs, and then Jermaine would lay down the parts for Bow. And maybe do 2 songs a day, 2 or 3 ideas a day. Then Bow will come in at 11, 12 years old, listen to the songs, and he'll say, okay, y'all could go, y'all could go do whatever y'all gonna do, and when y'all get back, the songs will be finished. It's at 12.
That's crazy.
Pocket, just
Wow.
He had a thing how he memorized a song, how he learned a song, how he memorized it, how he go over and over again with it. Like it was like he was probably I don't think I've ever seen a kid like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, outside of not to the bad. Beyonce was that gifted. Obviously Usher was that gifted as a kid. Monica was that gifted as a kid. But personally worked with somebody at that age when he was 12. I remember being like, ooh, where's this kid? Where did he come from? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, some people just, he obviously just had it. He was too young. I know he had the experience with Snoop and all that. I know that too. But this kid just had it. You know what I'm saying? So some people just got it like that at 11, 12. And then, some people, really work hard at their craft and really work hard at prepping. And they really take the preparation as serious as the talent part.
That's interesting because, I feel like the more you learn, all the artists, well, many of the greats, right, who achieve a certain level, they have talents that the audience doesn't experience, if you get what I'm saying, right? That actually allows them to be at that level where, so for Bow Wow, you just talked about his ability to do that. For Beyonce, not that long ago, I saw this clip. It was just almost a montage of people basically saying she has just this ear.
It's ridiculous.
That's what I mean. And as a fan, us creating,
and she's had it since she was a kid.
You don't even know what that means, right? Can you talk about something like that?
She hears it, she can sing it.
Yeah,
and sing it back to you 10 times better than the way you when she heard it. She's had that gift since we were children. It's really an amazing thing to see. It's like she could hear something, or hear a line or a lyric, or somebody could feed her a hook, or a harmony note. She can hear it and then sing it. It doesn't really take long for her to process it. It's she hears it and then she could just sing it, and when she sings it, it's gonna sound like
it's like
Beyonce.
a drumline. Yeah, can't how you hear that thing back.
Yeah, it's gonna sound and it's gonna sound like Beyonce. It ain't gonna sound like you singing it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. When she sing it, it's gonna sound like it's gonna sound like somebody who know what they're doing. Yeah. And as far as hits are concerned, it's gonna sound like Beyonce.
While we on there, is there anybody else who had a surprising talent or just little observation you had?
So many, man. Chris Brown was my first time working with Chris Brown. Just the way that he processes. It was crazy at the time. I think Chris Brown was really trying, when we worked, I think he was 14 or 15 at the time when we did those songs, Say Goodbye, Winter, all them songs.
Sheesh.
And I think Chris was already locked in when it came to how he wanted to perform vocally. I think his voice was he'd already found what that voice was going to be, what we know now as his voice. So when I think back to our sessions, I think our sessions was more about him learning how to write songs than, you know what I mean? Because I think he knew, okay, they give me whatever they give me, I'm going to kill it. He had the confidence, and there's a difference between being confident and arrogant. Because he's a kid. Yeah. He was just a man child. So he's a kid. He want to play all the time. He's just dancing all day, and you know what I mean. But he had a confidence about him that, and he could back it up. You throw something at him, he pop. So I think in hindsight, I think that for him, our sessions were more about, okay, well, how you guys writing these songs? What's the structure? And I want to understand that. And Brian, show me this, and you know what I mean. So Chris was somebody who I think had just that natural, ability. Bieber. Bieber has a natural knack. He was really, I think Bieber might have been 11 when I did them songs with him.
I didn't even know you worked with Bieber. What songs did you do?
I did a song called Never Let You Go, but I also, you understand, Bieber was kind of like making his rounds. You know, like he was like, everybody was trying to sign him. Everybody was trying to work with him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he was making his rounds, and what Scooter would do was he would bring him to like the studio and just hang out and like, you know, hang out in sessions where if I'm working with, you know, Mary or something like that. But Bieber would just be in the session, you know, just like learning, soaking it up. And so it was, there's actually a clip, it's funny, there's a clip of me playing piano and Bieber singing You Got It Bad. Bieber's got to be like 11 years old. And it's like you know, like his Scooter brought him to, you know, to the studio, like, yo, Brian, man, you need to see this kid. And, you know, I was like, man, I'm impressed with this kid. You know what I'm saying? So like, he's somebody who has a natural, who you couldn't teach him that. He was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was in him. You know what I'm saying? Like you couldn't teach him that. So, but there are a lot of. I mean, I've worked with some really gifted artists, more gifted artists than not. Most of the artists I've worked with that you see on my discography, for the most part, extremely gifted. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like Brandy, phenomenal. Monica is one of my best friends, phenomenal. You know. You know, I mean, you know, Money Long's ridiculous. You know what I mean? She's actually just one of those people that has had 9 lives in this business. And just her skill. Like, at this point, you have to say that this person is just, she just got it. Like, no matter what. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no matter, against all odds, no matter what, you know what I mean? The ups and downs she's had in this business, you know, before she was Money Long, she was going by her real name, and she, you know, had a couple albums out and was writing songs for Rihanna and all these different people. She's had some success in a lot of different spaces, and has had some, you know, some trials too in this business. And one thing you can't take away from that girl is that she's one of the most talented people, you know, ever.
Yeah, Money Long is amazing, man. I'm a huge fan of her, especially because of the type of R&B she's bringing in this era. You know, obviously it's not 100% the feel of old, because you always have to update, modernize a little bit, but it feels like it's directly tied to that. And for it to get as popular as some of her songs have gone, because when people complain about R&B being dead or struggling, and then you have the other side where people say, nah, the talent's there, y'all just not searching for it. My response to the people who say search for it is, if you have to search for it, it's different, right? It's like, as someone who loves music, okay, yeah, I have to search, but that's not what we're asking for just to find an artist. It's like you're asking to have that same feeling as when R&B was just outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
It was the trend. It was where, you know, pop was pulling from. That's a different feeling when the R&B is just there versus you got to go look for it.
It's true. Cause even back in, you know, when R&B was, you know, I guess the mainstream, you know, what you just described, there were still a lot of artists that you had to look for. You know, like, you know what I mean? If you say that kind of stuff was, I feel like, was a niche. Like, you had to go look for an artist like Emile LaRue, or have to go look for an artist like Omar, or look for art. You know what I mean? Back in those days when R&B was, you know, top of the charts. You know what I mean? So I understand. I feel you on that. Like, I hear you on that, because it's kind of like, well, look for it. But I'm like, you know, you're right. If the artist you're looking for is still kind of a underground, it's like even more underground than the, you know, top R&B artists that you know, that like Apple Music is trying to, you know, push. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah, I get it.
Because I'm my age, I'm like, I experienced some of it, but I was still not too young to feel all of it. You know, it's just different.
Yeah.
Outside at a certain age. The only one of the few times in my life where I was like of age was when Ella Mae's Boot Up came out.
Oh yeah.
And that was just outside. I went to Black Biker Week at Myrtle Beach and everything. These guys, you know what I mean, had their bikes, but they playing LMA boot up, coming from that, just going down the street. And it's like, that's what people are looking for. Like for it to just be like in the air versus in my headphones. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I was gonna ask, I mean, who are the newer R&B artists that you feel like put R&B in a good space? Like who are you paying attention to that keeps you inspired?
That's a good question. I would say Lucky Day, Summer Walker, SZA, Bryson Tiller, who's been around. He's been around for a minute, obviously, but I'm not drawing a blank. Jack Freeman. I'm drawing a blank. It's a good question. You threw me off with that. It's a great question. I did because I have so many more names, but I'm blanking out right now. But I think those are some of the people. I think that there's a strong case for R&B at this point. A new artist like J Don, I think there's a strong case for it. I think that there are a lot of artists that want, that a lot of the fans want it. A lot of artists want to make it, and I feel like there's a lot of women really, really leading the pack, with that. I feel like that's the thing. I feel like women are leading the pack, like Summer, SZA, Alex Isley. I think that women are leading the pack when it comes to R&B. Kehlani and
Ravens just dropped a crazy project.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Like Victoria Monet, and I think that the women are really leading the pack right now. You know what I'm saying? There's some fellas coming up, but I think the women are really like they're the ones that's leading the pack and really carrying the banner.
So I mean, you've been around long enough at this point to where I'm sure you could sometimes look at newer artist songs and see your own influence in it. Mm-hmm. I would assume, right? What does that feel like when you can literally see the direct lineage of like what you were doing all those years ago?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's a crazy perspective. I think that also, you realize that you stick around long enough. You stay in the game long enough. It pivots. It's going to pivot back. It may not pivot back the way it was before. It's going to pivot in a new way. It's going to be a new type or a new version of it. But everything has a cycle. You know what I mean? I'm just thankful that I'm around to see this cycle start to come back, like the Money Long record and the thing with, seeing artists like SZA and artists like Summer Walker and people like, who's even sampling our stuff and, repurposing it. You know what I'm saying? It's just good to see, good to see that I've been around long enough to see it, and I'm still young enough to enjoy it. I'm not like a decrepit old man yet. You know what I'm saying?
That's what my grandma used to say to me, man. You wait long enough, you know what I'm saying, things will circle back around. You'll eventually kind of see something you saw before. So is that even something that like you think about? Like, do you feel like you have it, I don't want to say down to a science, but do you ever feel like there's a point in your career where you can say like, oh, I see the sound kind of moving here. Let me start prepping for it.
Now I do. Now. Okay. I'll say that. Before, I probably didn't prep that way. You know what I'm saying? Back, when it shifted, maybe I would say maybe 15 years ago when it shifted, I wasn't prepared for the shift. I'm gonna let y'all, you know what I'm saying? And I had to really find my way in the mix of that. And I think DJing helped me find my way. I always was a DJ, but then I started really DJing around that time and really getting gigs and when you start playing music for people, then you can see how, okay, this is what's making people move. This is what's making people, you know what I mean? How people react to certain songs. Okay, all right, these are the sounds. All right, and then I was able to really change my perspective once the DJing thing really started getting going like 15 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Were you? So you said you were always a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so did you always have that in terms of like you actually pay attention to how people react to the music to gauge if I should really continue forward with this song or not, or are you like just creating and then it just comes out and you're done?
Well, before I would just be creating and it just comes out, and I would use my DJing for the benefit of creating. So like if you think of, if you go back and listen to a record like Where the Party At, or a record like Forever by Little Mo, or a record like Don't Mess With My Man, But Nivea, for me, all those things are a direct reflection of me just being like in my creative space, DJing, going through records, and you know what I mean. I wasn't necessarily at that point DJing for people. I was more DJing for trying to get an inspiration in my room, right? Me going to do gigs started a little later. Like maybe, I mean, back in the day, I would do random things. Like I would, pop up at my man's, if DJ Mars is doing something, he got crate, he need to go to the bathroom and he got crates out. So then go to the bathroom, I'll DJ for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? That's how I was getting it off before.
Yeah.
But then, around, I would say 2009 maybe. Because I think I might have started doing gigs, doing things before that. But I think around 2009, that's when it really started picking up. I started doing a lot of gigs in Houston. I started doing a lot of gigs here, in Atlanta. Then we started moving around. It just started, we were utilizing, because you understand, there was a drought that happened when R&B music shifted and EDM came in and all these, and hip hop was already mainstream, but then rap just, exploded. You know what I'm saying? With Futures and the Thugs, it just went crazy. Yeah. So R&B kind of went to the back burner for a little bit. So, but I had a name. My name was big enough because I had done all those TV shows. I had those hits, from 2000, 2009. My name was big enough to say, okay, well, let's market you as a DJ. So that's what we did. Mm-hmm. And that's how I was able to change my perspective of, okay, let me. I'm not DJing for myself in this little room trying to find a vibe. Now let's see how people vibe in general. So y'all play everything, until I found my, pocket. And then, okay, cool. Now I understand how the crowd works and the whole nine.
So was that something you learned from getting that perspective as a DJ that you took back to your production and your songwriting?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I started hanging out with, DJs. I always hung out with DJs, but really started meeting big DJs, like meeting Kid Capri, meeting, hanging out with D Nice and hanging out with, Ruckus, and then when you start hanging with DJs, then it just the whole thing becomes more clear.
What's the difference, right? Real quick, because hanging out with DJs, obviously you've been hanging out with artists, producers. Mm-hmm. It's not like you didn't know any DJs. Yeah. But as a craft, and when you start hanging out with them, was there anything that you noticed differently about top level DJs and how they look at the music and think about things versus everybody else?
Yeah, I realized that I was just playing records. They are putting on a show. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it initially when I first started really getting into it, getting booked and things of that nature, I was just playing. I feel like, I was, doing blends, and I was trying to, show that I could even exist in this space. So I'm going to focus on my blends and focus on my transitions and all different things. And I think I was overly conscious of that when then I started hanging out with DJs like Trauma and, I went to college with Drama and Don Cannon, and you know what I'm saying. So those relationships start manifest themselves again, and we started reconnecting and started going to these gigs and just hearing them play. I was like, okay, they're not just playing. This is a show. Mm. So now I got to figure out how to, you know what I'm saying, merge all that, because I still want to play the way that I play, but I don't want it to be boring. I don't want people to be like, I want to get hired again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that shifted my whole thing. Like, oh, this is a show. And even and then Jermaine's my best friend. I'm with him at all times. And when when he really got back into DJing and getting booked, that was the thing too. Like hanging out with him, going to Vegas and going these places. I was like, oh, this is a show. As a DJ, it's a show. Okay, I got it.
It's funny you say you don't want it to be boring, right? Your mindset is switching where a lot of times, obviously you want to hit, you want people to like your music, but working with artists, a lot of times, sometimes it's more internal out, and they're not as worried. Some of them, I'll almost say, I don't care what people think.
Yeah.
But we've always brought up comedians where it's like, if you don't laugh, the crowd doesn't laugh. They kind of have to just say, hey, it didn't hit. It wasn't a funny joke.
It wasn't a funny joke.
It sounds like a DJ
Same
is
thing.
as close as that, yeah.
We're not the same, but but close,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, you drop a record and it's like, oh man, I shouldn't have dropped that then. You know what I mean? Like, let me get up on that one. Hey, yo, you chilling? Yo, get your drink on. Figure out how to transition out of it. You know what I mean? That's nothing too. When you as a DJ and you realize you may be going through a string of records that may not hit, the gift is being able to, it's not to live in that. A lot of times, you know what I mean, it's to not be emotional about it and say, all right, boom, let me go ahead and let me what records can I drop now to lift this? You know what I mean? That's the gift. The gift is like when you like, damn, I might have played 3 or 4 records in a row. That's not really. Maybe I shouldn't have played these records. You know what I mean? What's that 5th record that's gonna bring it back up, get your set going, and that's the thing. I do it day in, day out. That's why I like me doing, and I do my party on Wednesdays, Ladies of R&B. The DJs we have, they are, like the most professional DJs. They like the 2 of the best DJs in the city, Mixmaster David and Bowtie DJ, and they got it down to a science. You could tell when they get into like a point where they might be the party might be lagging. They might have played 2 or 3 records in a row. That's like, damn, I shouldn't have played those records, but they know exactly what to do to get it back. You know what I mean?
It's like an emergency bag.
Yeah, but also you do it day in, day. They DJ 5 nights a week. You know what I'm saying? So for them, it's a muscle memory. And as a DJ, you got to get. That's really where you got to get to the place you have muscle memory. It's like, okay, well, I know when it's not working. I know exactly what to do to make it work again.
I think he kind of asked the question in a way, but now hear you speak more on the DJ perspective. Mm-hmm. How exactly did that affect your records? Like going back, like are you now like seeing the club as you write?
Well, no,
everything's not a club song, but
it's just you want to write something that I do. How can I approach it? I want to write something that I know will get the public going, like subject matters that the public matters that matters to the public. Mm-hmm. So being outside, doing the club, doing the, you know what I'm saying, talking to all these different people, you tend to know now what people want to hear. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's in, even if it's a small, different clubs around, the nation. And I make it a point to have conversations, like, especially if, if it's a group of people I kind of know. If I'm there, I get to talking to them, but they introduce me to somebody, you know what I mean? I like to have conversations because then you kind of start understanding what everybody's talking about and what they want to hear, the subject matter they want to hear, you know what I mean? And then, you take it, and you don't even really know how it's going to manifest itself. There's nothing to. A lot of things you just file in your head, we talk, file, and you go to the studio one day, you're like, oh, wait a second, I had a conversation with so-and-so. Oh, we could talk about this. You know what I mean? And I'm always in my note, like my note app is ridiculous. Like I have so many. It's like so unorganized. I have so many notes and so much going on in my note app because I'm one of those people that like once I file something, if I walk away, I'm put it in my notes. It could be a random note and be like, where did this come from? But it's always a good reference to have.
I think hearing you talk about the name that saved you basically when music transitioned, right? R&B went down. Because I was going to ask more specifically, like, all right, well, what was your process? But you said, oh, you were able to switch to DJ because you already had a name. Everybody doesn't have that. Yeah. And I remember the first time I heard your name was Trey Songz last time. Yeah. Right? You're behind the scenes guy, but he mentions you at the beginning. I'm like, who's Bryan-Michael Cox or whatever? Like, was that an intentional, like, because it's not like you got a tag like Metro or a lot of these other people where their names are out in the front. Like, did you say at some point, I want to slide my name to brand myself?
I didn't do that. That was all him. That was literally like, we did the song and we wrote the song and I did his. We actually were finished with the song. We did all his vocals. That was done, and Trey tends to talk at the top. Is that's kind of a trademark. Is he'll get the talking on the top of a song or whatever. So he was like, "Yo, I want to put something at the top of a song." Cool. And he put to my surprise, he put that at the top of the song. I was like, okay, well, we keeping it on there. You know what I mean? So, I'm not the guy's like, yo, man, say my name. I'm like, I come from an era where, it's not the era like there's not. Well, I guess it still is that way. For me and for Jermaine, it's still that way. But we come from an era where people know who produced it by the sound. Mm-hmm. You hear something that sound like a B Cox record, 9 times out of 10 it's a B Cox record. You something that sound like a Timbaland record. Like Timbaland rapped and sometimes talked on songs, but not every song. Mm-hmm. So you could hear a Timbaland beat and be like, oh, that's Tim. You know what I mean? Or you could hear a Babyface song and be like, oh, that's Babyface. It was very much so about the music being the identity, the music being the tag. Yeah. I think producer tags are necessary now because you can't really separate who's doing what. Everybody has the same sounds. Everybody's using the same 808. Everybody's, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to. I think producer tags are necessary now because like if not, I'm not gonna know who produced it. And sometimes, like I said, we spoke earlier about the collaborative thing. Sometimes it may be 6 names on it as producers. And there might be one person that did all the programming, but this one guy dropped this one little sample in there, or this guy might have changed it. Like I was watching something, oh man, I can't remember the name of the producer. It's a popular producer too. Oh man, I can't believe it. But he was showing, they were going through like a session, and he was showing like, the different parts of the session. And he was like, yeah, this the hi-hat. And then I passed it to the hi-hat was like, and he said, and I passed it to my man. He juiced the hi-hats up. He juiced them up. And then it was like, he a hi-hat god. I was like, that's so strange. It's this guy, he added a like not even a full triplet to your hi-hat, which probably was just a button you used to use FL. And he's a hi-hat guy, and he probably got production credit on that, and probably got pieces of publishing and point like crazy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? For me, it's just like a person who can sit in front of the computer, sit in front of a room full of keyboards, and go from top to finish. That was amazing for me to see. Like, yo, that is insane. So I understand why people have to put producer tags on records, because you don't know who did what did. You don't know what's going on. But the guy who juiced up the hi-hats, he run around telling people he made the record.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the old school, like you said, you recognize the music by so many of the sounds. Obviously, Timbaland had one of the most unique.
Yeah, like, for real. Even Swiss Beats and
that he starts a song.
Yeah. So many. I can name all the artists. all the producers from that era. Irv Gotti had a sound. Jermaine Dupri has a sound. Puff Daddy had a sound before he could even jump on a record. You knew, okay, if it's like one of them old school samples with the it's probably a Bad Boy record. You know what I'm saying? It's just it was a very, very distinct time, and we had to have, because here's the deal. It was bad to bite somebody. It was bad to like, you know what I mean? It was, I used a really old school term, but it was bad to copy somebody. It was bad to, it was like if you copy somebody's style, it was like, oh man, this dude's a fraud. He copied whatever. You had to find, even if you started out and was like, maybe you sounded like somebody on your first record, your first 2 records, but you got to figure that shit out because, it's having your own identity, your own sound was the only way he was going to make it in this thing.
You made me think about something. So I saw this, I think it was Jermaine Dupri when he was on R&B Money podcast, and he had called Jay-Z down to work on
Money in the Same.
Money in the Thing, right? But the way that happened, he said he was listening to some Jay-Z song, and it was like the flow or cadence. It was something that Jay-Z did. He was like, that's me. He's like, if he did that, that means he
listening to me.
and
Exactly.
He knows who I am.
Yeah.
And then he reached out.
Yeah.
Like to be so distinct and have your own cues where then you can hear it when other people, even if the audience doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like that shows me how different y'all were or how unique y'all style.
But think about this though. Think about how that even happened. All right. Jermaine Dupri is from Atlanta, Georgia. You know, the South, you know, in the 90s the South was popping, but New York was being resistant to the South. Like nobody really wanted to give it up, right? Yep. But Jermaine is a person who he's a hip hop person. His dad promoted the Fresh Fest. You know, like he comes from the legacy of like hip hop. It's before him as a producer, before him as a whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, when you dancing with Houdini at the Fresh Fest, you know, you are part of the hip hop culture, right? So when you grow up in the 80s, everything hip hop is New York. You know, LA came later, but for the most part, everything hip hop is New York. It's Dougie Fresh, it's Slick Rick, it was Def Jam Records. Everything is New York. So you're looking to New York for that validation, right? Our generation was looking to New York for that validation for a bit before we decided, yo, we're not doing that no more. We the South. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But before that, you know, if you were a musician, if you were a DJ, New York was your North Star, right? So Jermaine, at that point, had made a bunch of hit records and still wasn't getting like the respect from New York like he felt like he should have been getting, right? He does the "Sleeping in My Bed" remix. This is really indirectly how the Jay-Z thing even happens. Okay. If Jermaine doesn't do "Sleeping in My Bed" remix, the Jay-Z thing might not even happen because that's how he heard Jay. "Sleeping in My Bed" remix blows up in New York, goes crazy, right? Mm-hmm. DJ Clue makes mixtapes. Mixtape culture's going crazy at the end in the mid to late 90s. You take other people's record, you rap on it. Jay-Z, out of all the beats, all the New York songs that was going on at the time, he decides to rap on "Sleeping in My Bed" remix. That's how Jermaine heard it. Jermaine heard it because he got a Clue tape and "Sleeping in My Bed" remix is on it, but it's Jay-Z rapping on "Sleeping in My Bed," and he's rapping like JD, like he's doing JD's
right.
You know, and then he's rapping like him. He's like, wait a second, like this New York dude is like copying New York's copying my style. Oh, okay. Instead of being offended by it, let me go do a record with this guy.
Man, that's genius.
You know,
that's crazy. So I actually remember, obviously, like Andre at the award shows, South got something to say and all that stuff, but I never thought about it from the perspective of the South was ever looking for validation.
Yeah.
From
I mean, Jermaine was there that night. Jermaine and Brad performed at the Source Awards that night. Like it was that night. I wasn't there, but I can only imagine what the tension was because there was a lot of artists from the South. The South was making noise. It was, you know, you had Outkast, you had JD and Brett, you had whatever Dallas Austin was doing. Like the South was making some real noise. You had Luke, you had, you know, Ghetto Boys, it was a 8-Ball MJG. Like the South was actually potent. This is before like Cash Money and Master P and all that, but it was potent. It was popping. You know what I'm saying? So you can just imagine they in New York already with a chip on their shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Like Outkast and them already, you know, Organized Noise, they already in New York with a chip on their shoulder. Jermaine and them up there already with the chip on the shoulder. Like, cause this is a New York award show. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's clearly what's going on. The boroughs, it's like all 5 boroughs is in there. It's clearly a New York show. And Andre he meant that when he got up there and said what he had to say. That was like, all right, enough is enough. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. I mean, look, you've been through so many eras, and you reinvented yourself so many times. I remember we had talked to, we had Ludacris, we had Timbaland on here probably like 2 months ago. Yep. And one thing he talks about a lot, even off camera, like just like reinvention.
Oh man.
Finding his way, and whenever I talk to him, he's now into like streaming.
He's really into it now too.
Really
Yeah. He's really into it now.
Now his personal wave and bag. What is your personal thing now? Like, have you found yourself? Because you did obviously writing the traditional R&B, of course, and that's always going to be you. You move to the DJ, but do you have a different thing in this era?
Yeah, for me, it's about nightlife and like hospitality business. You know what I mean? Like me, I have a party called Ladies of R&B that started like 7-8 years ago, and we've been building up, and now it's like the biggest party in the city. So my thing is taking something like that and say, okay, yo, how do we expand? Do we, do I want to take it on the road? I want to take, like we've become this staple of like, because it's natural for us because I'm, we're R&B cats. I'm an R&B cat. So seeing the resurgence of R&B and then doing this Ladies of R&B party, it's been a big, it's been a blessing. It's been like my way of saying, okay, this is what I'm going to transition to. You know what I'm saying? And just building the brand from that perspective. The music part is interesting. Like I said, I've been in it long enough for it to come back around. So between the Ari Lennox records, the Usher's tour and his record, and Money Long record, and what me and Jermaine are doing with we're trying to just diversify it in a certain way. Like we're doing a documentary on Magic City with that. There's a soundtrack that's coming with that. So it's like, yo, how do we maximize, these platforms that we are now a part of building? You know what I'm saying? Like that's really the main thing. It's like, man, just staying active,
Yeah. What made you take the A&R position at Love Renaissance?
I felt like I could offer a sense of wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Me and Justice had developed a really great brotherhood, and I know a lot of the partners, and we all very cool, and they're brilliant. Brilliant at marketing, brilliant at what they do from a business perspective, and I just think that sometimes artists need. I guess a unk or OG, you know what I mean? And I feel like I provide that for the team, you know what I'm saying? And, the fact that I'm still in it, I'm still outside, we're still making hit records. So it's not like coming from a space of like, the OG, they ain't making no records no more. It's like, I'm still outside. Like I'm active. I'm just as active as all of y'all. You know what I mean? It's just that I have all these years of experience behind me. So it's valuable to them. And then what's valuable to me is being able to really learn the new way of doing business, understanding how to catch a wave, understanding that it's not really terrible. I used to be like, man, I'm not finding an artist online. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I come from a talent show era, and come from
Yeah.
But I had to come to realize, man, this business is different. Like the technology has made this business different. So you gotta come from another perspective. And what I can, what I appreciate about LVRN the most is that what I've learned from them and learned from that brand is that, the way to do business now. The way to view the music business, because it's it's different, and they are the leader. They're one of the leaders of the new school in regards to that, and they've taught me a lot in that space.
Yeah, was it easy for you to step into kind of this exec role, or do you feel like you had to? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you feel like this role is still closely tied to your artist brand?
Yeah,
or you find yourself
100%.
stepping into? Okay,
100%. The A&R role, I definitely, it gave me a little more structure than I normally would have as a creative, but it was it's fantastic,
And I mean the fit sounds perfect, because I know Love Renaissance really cares about artist development. Right?
They do.
They're one of maybe one of the few labels that really gets praised for their commitment to artist
to the
development.
point where labels want to hire them to develop, like
They
other
are.
labels want to hire them to develop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that's how good they are at it.
Yeah.
Not only artist development, but like I said, marketing and promo, and setting up releases, and connecting the dots, like putting this one with that one and this one with that one, and they get to this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only thing that I think that, you know, it is the one thing that's really, I won't say missing, but that they are really, really striving for at this point is to just have a true breakout hit record as an independent. You know, because before LVRMs were Interscope and now we're independent. So it was like, man, we got to, you know, we're having some wins, but we need the one big, you know what I mean? You know, and I think it's gonna happen. Like they're too smart and the artists are really good and it's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's bound to happen.
I mean, it's perfect. So even kind of sticking on the artist development part, because you said that you feel like one of the things you picked up from the role is structure. You're kind of being, you know, we infamously hear creatives talking about they like to book the structure, but then you're moving into this role where structure really matters. And what's interesting about their model and what we hear indie artists saying is that they feel like artist development is dead, right?
Yeah,
like artists,
they have it.
Yeah, artists overwhelmingly agree that artist development is dead. If you can speak on it, what do you feel like Love Renaissance does in terms of artist development that is different from other labels, or do you feel like they're just really one of the few labels that are just taking old school?
Yeah, I just think they're one of the few labels that take the old school model. I don't think that they're like reinventing the wheel. I think they're looking around. They looked around and say, "Oh no, nobody's doing this anymore.
Yeah,
we could do this. It's easy. You know, we have. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like just, you know, we got a facility, we got studios, we got, you know what I mean? We have the wherewithal to do it, and nobody else is doing it. So let's do it." And then they became the best at it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? It's, you know, I just think that they saw a lack, they saw, you know, a void in the culture and was like, let's fill that void. And you got to understand, they were managers first. So they come from that, you know, that's what they did. They developed artists, they developed the whole thing. They were managers first. So that's really what in their bloodline. It's really just who they are.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because even, you know, when I hear, I guess, let's say older A&Rs, producers and things talk about development, there are certain aspects of it where it's like, okay, I'm putting them in the studio, we're helping them craft the sound, we're maybe helping them find their voice, find their personality. But then even just hearing you early in the conversation, it sounds like a lot of that too is also just like, okay, I feel like Sean is a really confident speaker. You're not a confident speaker. I want you to go hang out with Sean and get lunch for a day. You know what I'm saying? Pick up on Sean's sauce, or yo, Corey can dress, you can't dress. Go kick it with Corey and ask him like where he kind of gets it. So is that still pretty much the model? Who can I connect you with in my life that I feel like is bringing something to you that I feel like you're lacking in, or is it? I guess a bit more. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm good, but you're only as good as, you know, as I mean, iron sharpens iron, right? And, you know, the gift is being able to, like you said, see somebody's strength, see their weaknesses, and compare them accordingly. You know, your weakness may be this person's strength. This person's strength may be your weakness. Pair, iron sharpen iron. You know what I'm saying?
Just to close it out, we got a few quick questions. Okay. Number one, what was a song that you heard that you weren't a part of creating that inspired you, and why?
That wasn't a part of creating inspired me. There's a lot of them. I'm gonna just pick one. I would say I'm gonna go random. Usher's Seduction. I remember when I heard that for the first time, and we were working on Confessions, you know what I'm saying? And I heard that song, and I was like, oh man, this is a really good song. I appreciated the pureness of, because, you know, Usher's like, you know, this big star, right? So I appreciated the pureness of the R&B, like him really leaning in on like pure R&B. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. At that level, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And that song inspired me. But there's a lot of them though, man. Like, you know, there's a lot of them. I remember hearing, you know, before I really got into business, I remember hearing Timberland's Up Jumps the Boogie and being like, what is this? Like, this shit sound crazy. You know what I mean? You know, it's just, you know, there's so many songs like that inspire me. That inspire me to be, you know, be better.
Got you. Yeah, the seduction's definitely. The BPMs aren't for the club.
Yeah.
It's not. All right, who are your top 3 producers? Your personal, not the list there, but like your personal in terms of 3 producers of all time.
Jimmy and Terry are number 1. Three is tough because I have like 8. I would say Teddy Riley, and Quincy Jones. Yeah,
Okay. Can't go wrong with those.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with those. And to close it out, what is your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to see it through. You know what I'm saying? The ability to stick and stay. The ability to say, because you know, I recognize my gift, right? I know that my gift is music, and I recognize it, and I've worked really hard to cultivate that gift. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't take it for granted. I've worked really hard to cultivate making records, cultivate the gift of making music, because it's a gift. But I think my superpower is, it's like, you know how Batman is not like, you know, like Bruce Wayne's not like from, you know, he's not like Superman where he's from a different planet and he has these, but you know what I mean? Bruce Wayne kind of uses what he has around him. Yeah, obviously he has a lot of money, that helps, but he doesn't have like a, you know, a supernatural power. Everything is just, he's just a man, and he's uses what his resources around him, right? Yep. I think that's my gift. My gift is being able to use my resources around me. I view myself sort of like a Batman, really. You know what I mean?
That's interesting, because Batman's like you say, he doesn't have the gift. Well, he does have has gifts.
He has gifts,
but he doesn't have those
the supernatural
power.
Like how he can't fly.
He's still right there with the Justice League, though.
And he's one of the most important ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Batman's mere mortal, but he's more than that. He's, you know, what they said, become an idea. You know, for me, I feel like that's the thing. When, you know,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Bryan-Michael Cox, appreciate
you
being here.
Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate y'all for having me.
This is yet another episode of No Labels Necessary Podcast. I'm Brand Man Sean.
And I'm Corey.
And we out.
Peace.